For nearly a century, Alpha Phi Alpha, the largest and oldest intercollegiate African-American fraternity in the country, has been exemplary in its efforts to provide groundbreaking leadership, direction, and support to communities of color everywhere. Likewise, for nearly a century, the Epsilon chapter of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated has continued to augment, fortify, and perpetuate the legacy of noble A Phi A. Founded on April 10th, 1909, on the Ann Arbor campus of the University of Michigan as the fifth chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Epsilon is one of the nation's best longitudinal examples of the African American experience in higher education in general, and the development of historically black fraternities in particular. Affectionately hailed as the Fifth House and the Mother of the Midwest, Goodwill remains the monarch of this house, and college life on the Ann Arbor campus of the University of Michigan, and indeed on college campuses throughout the Midwest, has been indelibly marked by the beneficence of our existence as we continue to exemplify the legacy of alphahood. We at Epsilon have come to define alphahood as being the full embodiment of fraternal brotherhood, professional and scholastic achievement, social activism, and personal progress. To that end, we present this history compilation in great hope that it will serve as testimony, bearing witness to three irrefutable truths. 1. We, the brothers of Epsilon, continue to have an undying love for A Phi A. 2. We persist to pledge ourselves, its mandates to obey. And 3. We indefatigably bear a steadfast interest in the life, legacy, and longevity of this chapter, the place where we first saw the light. This multimedia history compilation presents a colorful, panoramic, and eclectic view of a development in African American fraternity life, spanning almost 100 years, from the early 20th through the early 21st centuries, with photos, narratives, historical facts, media files, and personal accounts gathered from chapter initiates.
I'm one of the few brothers left from the early period who was alive and active enough to give reminiscences that are still vivid and significant. So I will focus my reflections on the period 1909 to 1934, the era that I know best, inasmuch as I received my last degree in 1934.
I was born out in the fields of Abbeville, South Carolina, on September 27, 1915. In my day, we couldn't get a haircut at the Michigan Union, nor could we buy ice cream from the campus drugstore. The colleges did not allow us blacks to eat in the cafeteria, nor could we live in the dorms. We had to secure housing arrangements with private families within the
I enrolled in Michigan State Normal College in September 1956. At the time of my enrollment, there was not an Alpha Phi Alpha chapter on campus. However, there were several Alpha men on campus. Students at the Michigan State Normal College were pledged into the fraternity at the University of Michigan Epsilon chapter.
Epsilon chapter from 1960 to 1969. Progress in turbulent time.
When I arrived on campus for the 1966 fall term, there were approximately 60 black students in my class. This was the largest number of black students to enter at the same time in the university's history. In fact, our enrollment had the effect of doubling the number of blacks.
If fraternity membership is to be based on an agreeable exterior, a winning smile, a sleek dresser, a smooth talker, a good athlete, a social satellite, a fat pocketbook, or a color of skin, We are doomed to failure. Brother Belford Vance Lawson, 1929, 16th General President. Also, as an older pledge, i.e. a second-term junior, I saw my indoctrination into Alpha Phi Alpha as a sort of self-imposed rites of passage into manhood. The path toward Alpha versus Kappa, Omega, or Sigma was made much easier when I learned that my high school...
During this period of Epsilon's history, the University of Michigan went through a metamorphosis. Like many other state universities of this period on a national level, there was a movement afoot to achieve fair representation of African Americans on campus and to institutionalize this so that these campuses would be a home to blacks. These early years were bad years for retention of black students, with it being a common phenomenon for black students to transfer or drop out after a year due to financial needs or cultural isolation. Changes were soon to come to Michigan, and Epsilon was at the center of this transformation. The series of incidents that affected Black Greek life.
In the decade of 1990 through 1999, Epsilon chapter went through tremendous internal and external pressures to remain viable in Alpha Phi Alpha. The 90s was an era of declining glamorization and de-emphasizing of undergraduate fraternity and sorority activity on college campuses across the country. This was particularly the case for historically black Greek letter organizations on the Ann Arbor campus of the University of Michigan. Much of this was related to the ban on hazing and pledge lines after 1991. During the early 90s, the chapter epitomized blood, sweat, and tears. This resulted in high membership, exceptional programs, and positive relations both locally and nationally, and a true expression of what brotherhood was meant to be. A popular event in the 90s held on campus each new school year was Festival. At this event, a number of student organizations would set up tables on the diag and pass out information about their groups as they tried to woo potential future members.
I arrived on campus in the fall of 1994 and found over 600 student groups represented. Everything from Circle K and the Black Student Union to the Chess Club, and every fraternity and sorority, black, white, and otherwise, under the sun. As I walked across the diag that warm Friday in September, I came across many interesting groups. It was on that walk that I came across a group like no other. There, behind an elaborately designed table of trophies and black and gold paraphernalia, was a group of well-groomed black men in shirt and ties. They stuck out like a sore thumb in the maze of much other more casual and poorly thought-out presentations. I had only seen the activities of this group in passing, in the movie School Days, and on a college tour visit to Morehouse a couple of years before. After a few minutes of casual banter with the men representing Alpha, I knew this was the one. A group of business-oriented black men that were focused on community uplift and offering a lifelong experience was exactly what I was looking for. I entered Epsilon chapter as an 18-year-old freshman during the 1994-95 school year. I had no idea what I was getting myself into by joining this illustrious organization. However, the multitude of benefits gained as a result of my decision that Friday in September are priceless. Epsilon chapter, like so many other chapters in Alpha, represents what so many black males are looking for while attending college and away from the comforts of home. In essence, the chapter does become your home, and brothers really do become your family. Men that I have shared the best and the worst times of my life with came from the ranks of Epsilon chapter. Through the times of triumph and dominance as a campus organization, to the lean times of failure and survival as an organism of the brotherhood, relationships were forged in the furnace of adversity, and bonds were formed that cannot be broken.
By the late 1990s, most of the Black Greek letter organizations on campus only had memberships of 3 to 7 persons. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority was no longer on campus, and there were no Alpha Angels or any other auxiliary organizations. The late 1990s seemed to have an effect on all Greek letter organizations' ability to have large intake classes. Some were managing to bring in a few. However, others were even less fortunate.
By the fall semester of 1997, there were only 5 brothers that were actively participating. This meant that the younger brothers, i.e. neophytes, had to perform in critical leadership roles within the chapter.
If we do not make whatever sacrifice is necessary to regain and maintain quorum, Epsilon chapter will die for lack of brothers.
This mindset was passed down to us, and we passed it on to them.
My love and peace and happiness, I'm gonna give to Alpha all of my love and peace and happiness. I'm gonna give to Alpha all of my love and peace and happiness. I'm gonna give
10 or more years after the first General Convention was held, Alpha Phi Alpha was more or less on trial. Our early expansion program made a mistake, which mature reflection of later years has found that taking men into this fraternity in order to show up the other fraternities who were in competition with us for membership, men whose ideals of life and fraternity in general were not in the keeping with the ideas of your founders. But since they were accepted and initiated into the fraternity, they enjoyed the benefits of fraternal life mostly while in college. What has become of that same brother today? The answer, I am sure, is known to all of my audience. To all intents and purposes, that delinquent brother seemed fit for Alpha Phi Alpha material. Those brothers were actuated by a greed for gambling and a lust for pleasure, strong drink, and other forms of vice which your founders would have never tolerated. May we never again pass through such trying years.
Jewel, Nathaniel Allison Murray.
It was once said in General Assembly of the National Organization that
Epsilon feels that they are the fraternity.
Such a legacy cannot and will not be easily forgotten. And for this reason, the glory and renown surrounding the Fifth House have, since its very inception, consistently found itself the subject of not only debate, but also much respect. Brotherhood, scholarship, leadership, and service, the 4 principles upon which the Jews founded Alpha Phi Alpha, continue to be the guiding values of Epsilon. Ever clinging to the motto, accept nothing questionable, we at Epsilon chapter continue the tradition of excelling scholastically, athletically, and socially. We strive through comradeship to attain the noble goal of a balance between social and academic life, and have proven wrong those who declare that both these phases of existence are incompatible and mutually inhibitory. It can be said that fraternity life in Alpha Phi Alpha has shown us that the ideals to which we aspire are worth striving for, and the Epsilon chapter continues to be a rendezvous for fratres, a sanctuary for scholars, and a haven for gentlemen.
Unless black Greeks everywhere and at every level commit to radical and fundamental change, gross darkness will overtake the light. Change is hard, and change is slow, but change is necessary. Change must be steady, substantive, positive, and progressive, and it must be taken at all deliberate speed in order to fully keep pace with the agitating factors that influence the ever-changing landscape of Greekdom. Epsilon's future depends on all of us being the resources that we already are, and contributing those resources, intellectual, financial, social, organizational, experiential, and otherwise, which we already possess. To those who would say,
such change will never be, the darkest days are yet to come,
and have resigned themselves to conclude that
the end is inevitable,
I would say, then we must do what we can to hold back the night. To those who would say,
this is not our fight, let the youngsters have their day,
I would say, the abandonment of responsibility by those most responsible is tantamount to criminal negligence, and does not reflect the eternal spirit and attitude of the jewels. To the youth who march onward and upwards toward the light, but bear the attitude,
old heads, we love y'all, but this is our time. Please leave us alone.
I would submit to you that the Lord God himself calls the young because they're strong, and he calls the old because they're wise. If these are the prevailing sentiments, then I regretfully predict that one day this great fraternity will revert back to the condition and mandate of its earliest beginnings, to that of a social club. And we will all be as the old axiom, once a man, twice a child. If you fail to decide, decisions will be made for you. The fruit of indecision will be more chapters being snatched, shut down, and deregulated, more brothers and sisters being expelled, jailed, injured, or worse, and a heightened disdain and distrust on the part of the very community we are commissioned and compelled to serve, unless college chapters everywhere commit to substantive, meaningful, and lasting change, and unless brothers at every level support them in that effort. We will be as the dinosaurs, and college days. I hope that this documentation will help to increase the level of awareness, interest, education, and intelligence among today's college students regarding the history, development, and utility of Black Greek life. It is further our hope to encourage productive work among our fellow college brothers, and to kindle the flame of alphahood within alpha men everywhere and at every level, that we may all, in the words of Jewel Callis, do all that we can for dear old A Phi A.